to a story we've been following. The White House now backtracking on supporting paying migrants separated from their families up to $450,000.
The president is perfectly comfortable with the Department of Justice settling with the individuals and families who are currently in litigation with the U.S. government.
Now, the announcement comes after President Biden this week called the reports, quote, garbage.
The figures of compensation that is being handled by the Department of Justice is in the context of Federal Tort Claims Act cases, as distinct from the Family Reunification Task Force that we in the Department of Homeland Security operate, and bringing those families together.
All right, that was Mayorkas saying how it would work again, and here, I believe, is the president.
There were reports that were surfacing that your administration is planning to pay illegal immigrants who are separated from their families at the border up to $450,000 each, possibly $1 million per family. Do you think that that might incentivize more people to come over illegally?
If you guys keep sending that garbage out, yeah, but it's not true.
Well, his own administration thinks otherwise, as we heard from the press secretary there. Our next guest just introduced new legislation to block this reported plan to pay illegal immigrants up to $450,000.
So the bill, called the Illegal Immigration Payoff Prohibition Act, it will amend a federal law, giving the Attorney General authority for them to enter settlement agreements. Joining us to discuss is Republican Congressman from Ohio, ranking member on the House Intelligence Committee, and author of the new book, Do What You Said You Would Do, Fighting for Freedom in the Swamp. End quote there. Jim Jordan joining us live. Congressman, good to see you, and thanks so much for coming on. Obviously, a lot to talk about here. I want to get back to the story of the Wall Street Journal reporting that $450,000 payments are going to be made to migrant families that were separated at the border under the Trump administration. The president himself was asked about it. He said it was garbage. He called it garbage twice. ACLU comes out and says the president doesn't even know what's happening with his own Justice Department, and this better happen. Then we have the press secretary come out and say, no, the White House is comfortable with making these payments. Are you comfortable with the government making these payments? And what is this bill about?
No, of course not. This bill says you can't do this. You can't enter into a settlement agreements unless the Congress gives you the okay. So this is good legislation. Think about the context here. For month after month, we've seen the border situation get worse. I've said this many times. March was the highest month on record for illegal crossings until April. April was the highest month until May. May was the highest month until June. June was the highest month until July, when we had 212,000 illegals try to get across our border that month alone. August was 108,000. So it went down all of 4,000. But frankly, that was probably because of the Haitian migrant situation at the Del Rio Bridge during that time. So it's gotten worse every single month. And now we find out a border that's completely gone, no longer really a border. It's basically a borderless hemisphere, as Secretary Clinton campaigned on in 2016. Now we find out, oh, we're going to pay people who broke the law to come here. I mean, this is nonsense. This is crazy. This is illogical. And the American people see it for what it is. But the fact that the Biden administration is doing it is just, I think, just unbelievable. That's why we're trying to stop it. And we've introduced the legislation.
We'll continue to follow that. We also got an update yesterday in regards to the Durham investigation. We were learning that Igor Danchenko is facing federal charges for lying to the FBI about receiving an anonymous phone call in July back of 2016 from someone he believed to be the president of the Russian-American Chamber of Commerce. This indictment alleges the president informed him about a well-developed conspiracy of cooperation between the Trump campaign and Russian officials. In truth and fact, and as Danchenko well knew, he never received such a phone call or such information. All of these lies were material to the FBI because, among other reasons, the FBI's investigation of the Trump campaign relied in part on the company reports to obtain those FISA warrants. Remember those? He's the primary source of information to the Steele dossier, which of course led to Russian collusion. So talk to me about where this stands right now. What do you make of Durham's investigation and, of course, this latest development here, this arrest?
Yeah, I think there are two key takeaways here. First of all, understand this wasn't Danchenko lying to the Durham investigation, the folks doing the Durham investigation. This was Danchenko lying to the FBI clear back in 2016, 2017, much like the Zussman indictment just a few months ago, where it was, again, not Zussman lying to the Durham investigative team, but in fact, the lie that took place which started this whole thing. So that tells me Durham is going back to the beginning, figuring out how this whole lie about Trump-Russia collusion unfolded. The second, I think, key takeaway is the very thing they accused Trump of doing, President Trump of doing, is what they were doing. They were working with the Russians. They were talking with the Russians. They were close to the Clinton campaign. That to me is the irony of all this. That it seems to me that the left kind of always accuses us of what they're actually up to. So never forget, it was the Clinton campaign who hired the law firm Perkins Coie, who went out and hired Fusion GPS, who went out and hired Christopher Steele, who then worked with Russians like Danchenko and others to concoct this false story that the FBI used. And I think the FBI, excuse me, I think the FBI knew this from the get-go and continued to press it. We'll find out if Durham reaches that same conclusion.
We'll find out. Look, before we go, really quickly, tell me about your new book. I know it's out. I know a lot of folks watching right now want to hear about it.
Yeah, the first thing I'll tell you is I wrote every word of it. I'm the old-fashioned way. Get out the yellow legal pad and write it out longhand. But it'll take you behind the scenes. I think your viewers will enjoy the read. The interactions I had the privilege of having with President Trump, who did more of what he said he would do than any president in our lifetime. We talk about the Freedom Caucus, and then I talk a lot about the investigations that I've had the privilege of being a part of, the IRS targeting people who watch your show and all kinds of conservatives around this country, the Benghazi Select Committee, and of course we spend a lot of time. I talk a lot about the impeachment investigation and how that unfolded, and particularly some of the interactions we had with Adam Schiff in the bunker in the basement of the Capitol during all those depositions. So I think your viewers will enjoy the read. It's available on Amazon or Barnes & Noble now for pre-order.
That's a tease if I've ever heard one. Get out and get a copy there. Jim Jordan, Congressman from Ohio, joining us live. Congressman, have a great weekend. Always good to hear from you.
You too. Thank you.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them. Tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.